Most welcome. So good. All right, perfect. So thank you all very, very much for having me here today. Once again, I'm back with the fabulous people at Pillar and in London. And I just want to say, London's my hometown. So yeah. I was born at St. Joe's Hospital, and I lived on Victoria Street, right across from Gibbons Park, until I was 8 years old. My dad brought me over to Toronto, but I came back for 1 year of high school at South Secondary. Who's from South? Yay! So it's always a great honor and a privilege to come back to London and to see some of the most amazing things that are going on. And every time I turn around, Pillar is just taking another incredible leadership role here in this community. And this project, the Cross-sectoral Collaboration Initiative, is yet another example of that kind of leadership. So thank you, Michelle, and to the whole Pillar team, and for all of you guys for being here. So I've been asked to give you really what is probably the most crazy potpourri of ideas around collaboration. And it's an honor to be asked to be able to speak about collaboration, because ultimately, when I look at my body of work and my life, the collaboration is the fundamental goal that I have had underlying all of the work that I have done. So the opportunity to be able to reflect on some of this learning and to share it with people who I trust will take that into their own work and really look at the opportunity to utilize these ideas to bring about change in their local communities. This, to me, is what social innovation is really all about. So a super privilege. But in the theme of I, matey, I thought what we would do is get to know each other a tiny bit more in the room. And I noticed that there's some people who are at smaller tables, and I'd love it. I don't know how Maureen, how religious are we being about the names of the people? Like, if people were to merge, like, a group of 3 just doesn't seem big enough. Can you guys merge together? Yeah. So I'm going to get you guys to take a couple minutes. You already know each other's names through the first introduction, but what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to share with each other the answer to a single question. Tell me something about yourself. Tell the group something about yourself that you would never tell in a job interview. So I give you 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes to just share something about yourself that you would never share in a job interview. Go ahead. Okay, I'm gonna bring us back. Does anybody want to share one of these stories in front of 200 people? I look at the fear in the room, but everybody was laughing, right? Everybody was laughing, and I think that, hope that you got to know a little bit about somebody else at the table who may be from a different sector, but who still shares some fundamental values around the world, right? Which is, we all have a little something that we're a little shy about sharing. And we're all real human beings. And really, this is the foundation on which we build the strongest collaborations. It's about being authentic. It's about being real. It's about being honest with each other. And starting from a true place, right here, that is where we get the source for all great things. All right, here's the deal. I'm going to talk at you guys for for some time. I'm going to download a whole bunch of ideas on you, and then we're going to have some time to talk some more at the end about what we've been hearing, to ask some questions, and to talk with each other in your table discussions. So I'm here to tell you that the world is changing, and that collaboration is no longer something on the side. It is absolutely fundamental to everything we do in the world right now. And what I'd like to do is share with you some of the mega trends, but then bring it down into very real and practical community-based solutions wherever possible. And I will make a point of calling out where there have been private, public, nonprofit partnerships wherever I can, because when I look and I reflect on many of these collaborations, they oftentimes involve multiple sectoral partners. So hopefully we'll be able to pull those different pieces. How many people here, just so that we have a sort of call out, how many people here are from the private sector? Okay, just because you're wearing red doesn't mean that you're bad corporate bad guys. We love you guys. We just want to say there's 2 or 3 comments in the opening when I was talking to people. They were demonizing themselves around their role in the private sector. And I just want us to put that baggage aside. Okay? We are here as human beings, as people who love our town, who love our province, our country, and we're here in good faith. So please leave that baggage. We're here, all of us, to co-create solutions for the future. Okay, the world is changing. We are co-creating our future. And this very act is in and of itself a social innovation. Michelle and Maureen asked me to explain what is a social innovation. You run a place called the Center for Social Innovation. What is it? So I like to use the biggest and broadest of definitions. It's a new idea that's making the world a better place. Oftentimes, it's an old idea remixed and adapted to make the world a better place. What it is mostly, it's about us keeping our mind open to do things different, to take the opportunity and take the risk to not get stuck in the old ruts about how we would think about things, but rather to boldly walk forward together to try something new, to experiment with a new process, a new product, a new strategy, a new service. Because ultimately, if we keep doing things the way we've always done, we'll keep getting that which we have always gotten. And it's up to us to try some new stuff, to start innovating around the edges and see if we can actually get not just at treating symptoms, but at treating the root causes that underlie the problems in our society. So what does this look like? I'm going to take you through 4 trends that I'm seeing and that you'll recognize a lot of. The first one is co-creation. How many people have heard this term? Oh, good. So, co-creation, really quite simply changing the way that we make and do things by working together. And I'll give you some examples. First one, Wikipedia. There's a profoundly straightforward, simple process, an online website where we are co-creating and building a global knowledge base through a consensus process. Here's one you may not be familiar with. This is an organization called Quirky.com. This little gadget that I have come to love that sits on my desk to make order out of the chaos of my many wires and cords was co-created by 128 designers. They came together on Quirky as an innovation community, and they were actually able to allocate percentages of their contribution, which then informed the percentage of take-home that they would get for that co-created investment. It's an innovation in how we create and design products. Here's one that's a little bit more close to home. This is a co-created cooperative daycare. You heard me mention my kid who was asking about the t-shirt. Well, I was a working mom, have been a working mom for the last 13 years. And one of the challenges that I faced, and especially in a Toronto context, is there were no daycare spaces available. And there were certainly very few daycare spaces available at an affordable rate. Childcare space in Toronto is going for upwards of $1,200 a month. And this is unaffordable. And I was challenged by this fundamental thing. It's like, how am I going to leave my babies at home with anybody else? And so a group of parents came together when our children were young, and I wasn't the founder of this. This is another mom, another group of mothers, who co-created a cooperative daycare. Really simply, what we had is we had 6 kids, 6 families, 1 professional caregiver, 1 to 4-year-old children, and 1 parent duty day per week, which gave us a 3-to-1 ratio of children to adults, which blows all the other daycare models out of the water. And we were able to do this for $450 a month for childcare. What we ended up building was a very, very practical childcare solution for 6 families that allowed us to stay involved with our children. I did my duty day 1 day a week. We had a professional caregiver to make sure that we were doing all the right things. But the most important outcome was, yes, it solved a momentary problem in time, which was my childcare dilemma. But what it ultimately did is it built an incredible community. We recreated a very small village where now the parents that have raised these children collectively, we now have 18 kids amongst the group of the parents. And this is a village that continues to support each other for parent support, for kids are now like cousins with each other. We still get together on a regular basis. And this has become a foundational solution for us as a very small community. I provide this example to show you that the power of co-creation can go from the craziness and globalness of a Wikipedia all the way down to a group of 6 parents, 6 families coming together to co-create solutions for their own needs. This was probably one of the most powerful experiences of collaboration I've ever had in my life. One of the most difficult. You try parenting 12 kids and you try figuring out how to work through the difficulties when it comes to parenting choices and all sorts of different craziness. But I have to say, the most rewarding because it was so much a personal solution. I'm going to introduce a new trend really quickly here is this concept which is tied to co-creation, which is this power of collaborative consumption. How many people have heard this term? Okay, fewer. This is probably one of the most powerful movements that's happening at a global level that you can know about, and I want to introduce you to this. This concept of collaborative consumption is the idea of using something you don't own. So this concept of ownership, that we all need to own this piece of land, this car, this bike, this hotel room, what have you. Ultimately, what's happening is that things are fundamentally shifting because of the power of technology, and we're seeing the introduction of some amazing new business ideas that are transforming the way that we deliver service. The most obvious one, the one that you guys will know, is Zipcar. You guys familiar with Zipcar? So this is where we're sharing automobiles. Now, I'm not sure that that's going to be as applicable for London as it is for downtown Toronto, although I must say I really appreciate knowing that another town also experiences difficulty with gridlock rather than just Toronto. But this has been an incredible solution. And this idea of car sharing has spread to all sorts of things. Bike sharing is all over the place right now. In Toronto, we've got the Bixi program, and you're seeing it in city after city after city, and it's creating a network of resources that are shared amongst a group of people. This kind of thinking is reducing costs for people. It's also providing access to infrastructure that they don't have to maintain themselves. So it's all about not what do we own, but what do we have access to. And it's a very, very powerful trend, particularly in the under 30 set. And this is where the story of the Center for Social Innovation is another example of this concept of collaborative consumption. Now, I'm going to go a little bit more deeply into this because obviously this is the organization that I run. I'm quite excited about it and want to share with you the power of shared space to transform the world. But ultimately, this is an example of collaborative consumption. We are shifting the pattern of work. We're moving away from a singular office for one person in a building far away, and we're moving to a place where we're looking at providing access or having access to shared workspaces in multiple locations to be able to meet the needs of our own businesses and nonprofits on a day-to-day basis. So let me give you a little bit deeper exploration of CSI. The Center for Social Innovation, let me just be clear, we are ourselves a not-for-profit organization, and we are home to people who are creating a better world. We provide nonprofits, social ventures, community leaders, and entrepreneurs with the spaces, relationships, and knowledge that they need to grow their ideas and to create impact in the world. And what I'm going to do, assuming Alan and I are in sync here, is I'm going to give you a bit of a video to give you a sense. Center for Social Innovation is a social enterprise that provides shared space and services to over 350 social mission organizations. We act as a community center and an incubator for people who are trying to make the world a better place. So whether that is for people who've got social ventures or nonprofits or charities, the Center for Social Innovation is a home for people who are trying to change the world. So social innovation is a new term. It's a term that's emerging, and like any innovation, I don't think it's really fair to say there's a definition yet. But I do think that what we know is where we have social need and where we have new ideas coming together is where we see social innovation. We're really interested in those solutions which are systems changing in some way. But we're also super excited about our plans for the future. CSI is delighted to be moving into opening our third location in Regent Park. I think our first two locations are city centers. Regent Park will be, I hope, a destination for people in the city, but it'll also be our first move into a neighborhood. One of the things that we believe at the center is that you need to build a culture. And part of the culture that we're trying to create is a culture of collaboration, a culture of community, a culture of idea exchange and networks. I think fundamentally you have to want to be a part of a community to be a part of CSI, and it's a vibrant community of folks who are full of energy and life and have a tremendous amount to offer. So whether you're a local food entrepreneur or a city builder, you'll have a home at CSI. It's a vibrant cross-section of people who are trying to make the world a better place. So that's the Center for Social Innovation. I want to give you a quick rundown on our evolution. I want you to understand that this was a grassroots movement that came from a cross-sectoral collaboration. It was five individuals from government and the for-profit sector who had deep roots in the nonprofit sector, which co-created the Center for Social Innovation in 2004. It was Margie Zeidler, who was the real estate owner of 401 Richmond, who had recently bought 215 Spadina. It was Pat Tobin from Canadian Heritage, who very quietly in the background offered us a feasibility grant, which we used as startup funding. Shh. And it was Mary Rowe from a publisher and a Havana Capital, which was a for-profit investment fund that ran a foundation arm. Myself as a nonprofit professional who'd been working in community, and I'm forgetting one of our co-founders. Oh my gosh. Oh, and Eric Meerkamper, our chair, who's still currently our chair, from Decode, which was a for-profit branding company. I explain this because it really was, actually, all of us were in the for-profit or the government sector when we co-created CSI. I was running my own consulting practice at the time. And so from this simple question, how could we share? The Center for Social Innovation was born. We started with 5,000 square feet in 2004 in Margie Zeidler's beautiful building on Spadina. In 2007, we took a giant leap from 5,000 square feet and 21 members of our community to a 23,000 square foot space on 2 floors in the same building. And we expanded our membership to over 175 social innovators. Combination of arts, environment, social, health, for-profit, nonprofit must be working to change the world in some way. In 2010, well, actually in 2010 in September, we decided to go and open our second location in Regent Park. And then in December, we found CSI Annex, and we were approached by a for-profit company, just for the record, again, to explore a possible real estate partnership. In 2010, we purchased 720 Bathurst. It's a 36,000 square foot building, which is now home to over 300 social innovators in the space. We now, in 2010, had operated 2 locations. 2 weeks ago, we opened our doors on our third location in Regent Park. And we're super excited to be having the Minister of Economic Development and Innovation coming to open the space next week officially. And in fact, tomorrow they're going to be doing the official opening of the Arts and Culture Centre at 585 Dundas in Toronto. The growth has been crazy exciting, driven by need. And ultimately, our focus continues to be and will continue to be the need to support the now over 400 social mission organizations and projects within the Center for Social Innovation. These folks are amazing. They tend to be younger. They're absolutely dedicated to developing sustainable strategies to support their social missions. They're driven by a deep and fundamental understanding that it is collaboration which is the underpinnings of new ideas. They're tackling issues everything from farming to finance and absolutely everything in between. Those 400 organizations represent over 800 social entrepreneurs and growing. We've done stats. We know that the center has an incredible impact on folks. There's all sorts of amazing stuff around. Over 85 of our members have collaborated with one another. Ultimately, it helps them build better networks and it helps with employee retention and recruiting board members and attracting donors and foundations, financial support. But the number one outcome that I think is most important is that 96% of them feel that it makes them happier people. And when it really comes down to it, all of those other things are tactics to get at this fundamental question about how are we creating and supporting a happier society. So the trick is in the execution. Just a quick and dirty on what we do. CSI provides workspace to members, workspace such as private offices, private desks, co-working spaces. We provide access to full office infrastructure and amenities, meeting rooms, and event spaces. So we provide workspace. Number two, we help cultivate relationships so our members can connect with other potential collaborators. We have dedicated community animators, an online platform and social network for our members. We host peer circles, mentoring, networking, and socials. Socials are the most important. The revolution always starts in the kitchen. We are very much, we arm our members with the knowledge they need to create impact. We host over 500 workshops, seminars, and capacity building events every single year in our spaces in Toronto. We support them with access to social innovation frameworks and models. We host labs, camps, and accelerators, and anything else that anybody can dream up. And ultimately, we provide select members with additional resources to transform those ideas into impact through investment and incubation, mentorship, strategic support, and tailored capacity building. Ultimately, we see ourselves as a platform for promising social entrepreneurs to succeed. And yes, we've been invited by a very large private sector partner to come to New York City. It certainly wasn't in the strategic plan. I can't believe they came, but I'm going to tell you how it happened because it was kind of crazy. We host information tours. We've hosted information tours to hundreds of organizations in the last 8 years. We had this New Yorker come in. He says, "God, I've read your books about shared space, and I really love what you're doing." He says, "I think would you consider opening up a location in New York City?" And Eli, my colleague, said, "No, thank you. We're not interested in expansion right now, and the barriers to entry into moving into a new space very, very challenging." And he says, "Are you sure you wouldn't consider moving to New York City?" And he says, Eli's like, "No, I really don't think so." He says, "Well, I think I'm going to be able to make it worth your while." And so there's a back and forth. We go to New York City on the promise of a consulting gig. Right? You want to be able to bring that revenue into your nonprofit organization. We're going to do this consulting gig. Well, we meet the CEO of RXR Realty, and this man is just amazing. They sit, are you ready for this? They have $8 trillion of real estate assets in the New York tri-state area. Yes, that's a T for $1 trillion, right? And he basically says, we've looked all over the world. We have this new building called Stare at Lehigh that we've just bought. We are looking for a community incubator, a way to support meaningful creativity in this building. We've looked all over the world and we think you're the best. And we think we're going to make it worth your while. And we then proceeded to sign a $4 million deal in partnership, shared risk, shared skin in the game model with a private sector corporation to be able to animate their building, their city, and to bring social innovation into the New York core. I share this story because ultimately I am astounded by the power of a great collaboration to bring about change. Am I scared? Absolutely scared out of my mind. We've never had to enter a new market. We have no idea what it's going to look like. Growth is super hard. But wow, when you've got powerful and wonderfully supportive partners, you feel so much more secure taking the risks that we know we need to take in order to bring and catalyze social innovation in Toronto and around the world, which is our mission. So, leveraging the power of a village in shared space, this is what the Center for Social Innovation is doing. Fundamentally, it's about people making people happy. It's about understanding that we need to build platforms for collaboration. You've got an incredible one here in London with Pillar. It's about understanding that meaning making is the new motivation. The whole idea that bigger is better is fundamentally being questioned right now. People are looking for meaning. They're looking for a sense of fulfillment in their own professional work. That's why we see the incredible emergence of CSR programs, which are linking nonprofits and corporations, because ultimately these folks are looking for a way to engage in a more meaningful life. And these partnerships provide us with vehicles to build those connections. So the next piece I want to talk really briefly about, you're going to be talking about it for the rest of the day here, is this idea of cross-sectoral collaboration. I've given you some examples of cross-sectoral partnership, but I would argue that a partnership is quite different than a collaboration. So I'd like to share with you a story about an organization that I was a part of co-founding called the Canadian Partnership for Children's Health and the Environment. This organization was a group of 11 organizations that came together from health, environment, and childcare back in 2000 that came together with the question of how do we address the incredible toxic exposure that our children are being subjected to on a daily basis through consumer products and the environment. I come from the environmental movement. That's my kind of core. And this was an issue that I was deeply passionate about as a new mom. One of the things that we came together with is it started with a very simple question. What do we know about children's environmental health issues? What do we know? And so we brought together this group of 11 organizations, again, children, health, and environment, that came together over a 5-year process to figure out just how they were going to work together and to really just establish what do we know about children and toxic exposures. At the 5-year mark, and I give you this timeline because we do know, and you heard it in the opening, collaboration takes time. It's hard. And it's sometimes, in order to get the participation of the organizations in a truly meaningful way, the amount of process that goes into bringing these organizations into a genuine partnership or a collaboration can be very time-consuming, but it can also be incredibly worthwhile. After 5 years, we published the State of Children's Environmental Health in Canada. We took this to the Government of Canada. We took it to our corporate partners, and in 2007, we undertook a process, which was a multi-stakeholder process, where we engaged with every single level of government, from local municipalities to provincial departments to the federal government in health and environment. We then worked with the Canadian chemical producers. We worked with the perfume industry, the consumer products associations, and the 11 founding organizations that were a part of this group, KIPCHI, to go through a national consultation process in 6 cities across the country to engage in issue after issue after issue, every single one of them highly controversial. You go to the East Coast and you talk about mercury and toxicity and neurodevelopment, and you have got explosions on your hands. If you go and you talk to the consumer products and the perfume industry about toxic exposure in consumer products, you've got explosions on your hands. But this was a powerful, powerful process that ultimately led in 2008 to Tony Clement announcing the ban on bisphenol A in baby bottles. Now, why does this matter? One substance out of 23,000 that are currently in use in our country, one substance was banned in one product. Who cares? But what it did is it did 2 vitally important things. One is it gave teeth to the chemicals management plan that subsequently meant that Canada now has the most child protective toxics legislation in the world. And number two, it triggered a global market transformation in consumer products so that now, are you pregnant over there? Yes. So that now she doesn't even have access to the kinds of toxics that I would have seen in the products that I consumed or had access to when I was pregnant. We have actively and cooperatively and collaboratively with government, hand in hand, and the consumer products and the industry partners, made fundamental legislative change which is now protecting our children. This is the power of collaboration. It's the power to be able to work through the painful process of building trust, building relationships with very unusual suspects, to be able to get us to be able to bring about the systems change that we need to make fundamental change. I can go into how we did this at nauseam, and I'm happy to take questions. I'm not going to go into it too much, but I will say, I think that the shining example, the key piece of why the Kipchi process worked was because we invited our government and corporate partners to the planning table. We didn't just invite them to the meetings. We invited them to be on the advisory committee and to work hand in hand with us to engage in a genuine multi-stakeholder consultation process from the very get-go. It was the hardest year of my life, 2007, because I was the lead facilitator holding this process. It didn't stop. Every single moment of that year was about holding the tension between these divergent opinions. But ultimately what held us together was we kept asking ourselves, what do we agree on? What do we agree on? Not what divides us, what separates us. That is no problem. We have that clear and loud and strong. But the question was, what do we agree on? And you know, it was quite remarkable. In a context that was that politically charged, with that much at stake, to be able to watch the human beings that were going drinking after the workshop, to start doing the real negotiation around answering this question, what can we agree on? I remember a breakthrough moment where I was talking to the CEO of the Canadian Chemical Producers Association, and he said to me, I was really pushing him. I was like, come on, we can do this, Richard, we can do this. And he says, Tonya, all we need is certainty. Just give us certainty so we can plan accordingly. And this was this breakthrough. I said, we can agree on that. We can agree on the need for research. Anyway, I can obviously get really, really sidetracked into this fabulous topic. It was a powerful example, again, of how a multi-sectoral group can work within a multi-stakeholder group to move fundamental and difficult issues. It took us 8 years before I moved on, and this incredible organization carries on with incredible work. They've now been at it for over 12 years, and I couldn't be more proud. Very briefly, some of the organizing models have brought us to the co-creation of another incredible network that Michelle and I think all of you, really, by extension, are somehow connected to, which is the Ontario Nonprofit Network. I have the pleasure of co-chairing for the ONN right now. And what this is a network of over 40,000 organizations, a network to serve over 40,000 nonprofit organizations across the province. I want to share this example because what this is a totally different way of looking at cross-sectoral partnership. This was using a network approach to be able to unite and bring together the voices and opinions of a very underserved or undervoiced sector within our society. This is the partnership project. The Ministry of Citizenship and Immigration has been an incredible partner, a shining example of the kind of way that we can build and strengthen the relationship between the nonprofit sector and the government sector by working towards a partnership. This question, what do we agree on? I'm not going to get into it too much. You should just come to the conference next week because I want to get on to some of the other good, juicy stuff. Ultimately, for me, the difference between partnership and collaboration is that partnerships, I think, are really much more around mutual self-interest. Figuring out where is their mutual self-interest to be able to connect multiple partners across sector or not, just within a community. A collaboration, to me, ultimately has something a little bit more complex to it, and is often looking to achieve some change outside of the collective self-interest. It's more about collective self-interest as opposed to mutual. Uh-oh. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah, because I don't know. I think I really screwed that one. Okay. We'll come back. So let me tell you about the next trend that I want to share with you, the last sort of big trend. And this is the concept of citizen finance. How many people in the room have been told or felt that they couldn't do something because there wasn't the money there? Right. So I hate that, right? Like that's just, it just drives me mental, because it just, it offends my sensibility that we see this thing called money as such a limitation, when really money is only a reflection of energy. Money is the thing that reflects where we decide to put our energy. So I want to show you some examples of some amazing stuff that's going on around the world and really close to home around the democratization of finance. I have an entire other workshop all about what I think is wrong with the financial system that I'll share with you after. It won't be here today, but I do want to show you what the power of crowds are doing to transform finance right here, right now. How many people are familiar with Kickstarter? Kickstarter, amazing project online that is now providing micro-funding for projects, thousands and thousands of projects. This is one of the first organizations, but certainly not the only, as an online platform that's facilitating a new kind of donation. So most of our thinking in the nonprofit sector has been wrapped around the idea of a charitable receipt. But crowdfunding is completely undermining the whole concept of philanthropy as we know it, which is delightful, interesting, challenging. It's going to present all sorts of interesting creative challenges for us. But what it's doing is it's harnessing the power and energy of people who want to support good ideas. So whether you're designing, making a documentary film and you need to raise $20,000 to make that film, or whether you've got a product idea that you then want to be able to put onto Etsy, this platform is enabling practitioners, makers, to be able to access financing, but really donations, a new kind of donation. And so if you don't know about it, you should check it out. It's quite an amazing platform. But I want to give you an example of citizen financing that you could replicate right here at home tomorrow. How many people are familiar with the Awesome Foundation? Do you have an Awesome Foundation here in London? Okay, one outcome, please. Awesome London. We need Awesome London. So what is the Awesome Foundation? This is an initiative that was started about, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago. It came out of Boston, and it was a really, really simple concept. What if 10 of us were each to put together $100 every month and give it to something awesome? No strings attached. You take the cash out of your wallet, you put it in a brown paper bag. In our case, you get a gorilla to deliver it to you. What this has done, so this idea, this basic idea, which came from Boston, has now spread to over 40 cities around the world. I'm very proud to be a part of the Awesome Toronto Foundation, and I'll just give you some examples of the kind of craziness that we've had. So what it is, for 18 months now, we've actually got 15 members, each putting in $100 a month to be able to fund and give money away. No strings attached, no due diligence process. We read a little application. They've got 3 questions. Who are you? What do you want to do? How are you going to spend the money? 3 questions. We receive applications every month on our website. We sort through them. We make decisions electronically through Google Docs, which ones do we like or not like. And then we have a pitch session. We invite the top 3 or 4 to come and pitch it for us, for the trustees, while we're having drinks at the Gladstone Hotel. So, very important. And what we've been doing is we have been giving away $1,000 a month in a brown paper bag to some of the most amazing, creative, grassroots projects that would never, ever see the light of day were it not for a bunch of citizens getting together to give this money away. So whether it's the development of rainbow flame-throwing technology, which is true. You're supposed to, like, come on, imagine that, right? All the way to guerrilla gardening initiatives, all the way to the first project that we funded was an art project to put a Connect the Dots art piece on the rooftops of buildings throughout the city of Toronto that could only be seen through Google Maps. That's awesome. Yeah. To the funding that we just gave was for a project called the Little Libraries. We gave $1,000 to Little Libraries, and Little Libraries is about citizens putting a post and a box with their extra books to be able to share with their neighbors on their front yards. This is awesome. This is community building. This is about citizens taking matters into their own hands to co-create a better London, maybe? We certainly have more fun doing Awesome Toronto than I could ever possibly It's my joyous part of the month. It's so fun to hear the craziest, wildest ideas. We had a woman who was trying to save the penny. The creativity, the innovation is just astounding. But I think they've got awesome food that's supporting food entrepreneurship at a global level. You've got awesome knowledge. You've got all sorts of different iterations. And I just think this is an amazing way. Now, I will say, some people balk at the $100 a month. So I want to tell you what Halifax did when they were replicating the model. Halifax says, look, we don't have the kind of money that you guys do in Toronto. And so they said, we're going to have 30 trustees who are each going to give $30 a month every month and participate in the process. And they've divided up the process so that all 30 of their members are able to participate in the decision-making every single month. And it rotates. So the best thing about Awesome is that there are no rules. You can do it any way you want. It's all about citizen action. Final story here is I've been asked to share the story of the community bond. So where you've got Kickstarter, which is this online platform to help you get donations, amazing stuff happening at a global scale, and then you get local citizen-based solutions like Awesome Toronto, Awesome Boston, Awesome London, Ontario. Then you've also got some new ideas that are coming out around citizen finance at a much bigger scale, around the nonprofit sector beginning to reclaim its roles as stewards of our community, and to really look at how we are fostering community wealth in our cities and through the infrastructure that we're investing in the not-for-profit sector. So I'm going to quickly tell you the story of the community bond. So I told you the story of CSI. We grew, we bought this building in 2010. You see, I kind of skipped over that. Like, we had no money at all. So we have a great business model. It's a sustainable-ish model, but it's not exactly highly lucrative, and we're always growing and expanding. So when we found this incredible building at the corner of Bathurst and Bloor, I looked down and I thought I had a really healthy balance sheet. I had a $50,000 surplus that was sitting in my bank for my building repair emergency fund, new projects fund, right? Every good nonprofit should have one of these. It should be bigger than mine. $50,000 is not going to buy you a $6.8 million building. So what does one do when one has crazy ambitions around actually becoming a builder of community wealth, of building something by the community? So I'm going to tell you what we did. This is our building, CSI Annex, super proud. And I'm going to tell you what we did to raise $6.8 million to be able to using community bonds and the power of citizenship to make this happen. So the building cost us $4.5 million, and then we needed to put another 2.5-ish into the building to get it up to grade and up to repair. So the entire purchase was $6.5 million. I think it was actually 6.8, but anyway, let's move on. So what we did is that oh, shoot, sorry, went the wrong direction. What we did is we had to figure out a way to finance this purchase, and we had no assets of our own. So we had a sustainable business model and a great reputation and lots of social capital in the community, but we did not have any assets. So what's the first thing we did? We went to the city, Mr. Mayor. We went to the city, and our incredible economic development team at the city and the culture department at the City of Toronto partnered with us to give us a loan guarantee Didn't cost the city anything. They gave us a loan guarantee that brought our mortgage rates from commercial lender down from what the banks would have given us, which was 65% of the price of the building at 5.75%, crazy expensive. With the loan guarantee, they were willing to give us 75% of the projected value of the building, which gave us the money we needed to do the renovations. And we got the rate at 4.5% for a 5-year term. So this was huge. First partnership, public, nonprofit partnership, working together. But we still had to raise $2 million. And so the question is, just where does a little nonprofit organization get $2 million from? Well, this was the real magic. We could have sold CSI to the for-profit sector several times. We had so many investors that were working on fabulous ways that we could part with our organization and become for-profit. I can't tell you. It was astounding. We had them lining up. Our board was really determined that we didn't have to put the building into a for-profit model. We were committed to making sure that this asset would be here to serve the community in perpetuity. So what we did is we created a community bond. A community bond is a debt instrument. Nonprofits cannot issue equity, but they can issue debt. What we did is we found a way to make it retirement eligible, RRSP eligible. How do we do that? It's a little known fact that mortgages are legitimate RRSP investments. So what we did is we structured our bond offering to be an interest in a mortgage, which meant that now, all of a sudden, people who were not rich could begin to invest through their RRSP. You guys know as well as I do, first thing you do, if you have any extra money, you put it into your RRSP. Somebody else figures out how to invest it. You do some rating scale around risk, and they assess you, and then they put it into some magical place, and you have no idea where your money really went. This is a real concern for us as citizens in terms of sense of responsibility. But ultimately, there are opportunities to invest locally, and we wanted to be able to unleash the power of the RRSP to be able to access, to be able to engage real citizens in our investment opportunity. What we were able to do is to offer a 4% return for a 5-year term and have it secured against the property. So what does that mean? It means if everything goes to hell in the handbasket in CSI land, this city, if we default, the city comes in with their loan guarantee and they run the place, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to say, well, is there any business here or not? And then if they decide, no, they've really screwed this place up so badly, it would never happen. But just in case, this is what all entrepreneurs have to get their head around, is everybody has to go through their own eventual demise in painful ways. That's part of the gig. What would happen is they would sell the asset. And every single one of those investors would get every bit of their money back because the valuation of the building was higher than the investment amount. So we have a relatively secure investment opportunity. So I'll just give it to you one more time. What happens is Anne wants to make an RRSP contribution. She has $10,000. She puts it into a self-directed RRSP and then directs her financial institution to be able to direct that towards the purchase of a CSI community bond. We take that money and we buy the building and we improve our community. But what happens to her is then every 6 months, we give her a 4% return on that investment, and that collects and stays in her RRSP for her retirement savings plan. Win-win. There was another loophole that we had to get through, and this is one that who's the lawyer in the room? Yeah, okay, good. So are you thinking about the OSC here? Yeah, okay. So the Ontario Securities Commission is the organization which monitors investments. And they have some really strict rules, and it's a good thing that they have really strong rules to protect investors. That is their role. One of the things that we were able to find out is that there in Section 186 of the Ontario Securities Act, there is an exemption for charities and benevolent societies from the Act. This means that nonprofits and charities have the ability to leverage the power of their communities to build community wealth and to create and offer a community bond which will enable us to build the kind of community infrastructure that we need in our communities. By offering a very real, very tangible investment opportunity for citizens, something that they can be proud of, that they can feel a sense of ownership in, and something that they will have to be able to point to as their part of their involvement for the rest of their lives. And if it's owned by a nonprofit, it will last for generations. Investments into nonprofits are not like for-profits. Typical for-profit, 5-7 years lifespan max. Nonprofits last for generations. This is the power of the community bond. So we raised $2 million in under 8 months. We have 60 citizen investors. We are now serving over 150 at that point, 150 social innovators in that space, and we are now offering a reasonable, a very solid return, one that's very competitive with all the GICs out there. But really what we're doing is we're watching citizens transforming capitalism to serve people and the planet. Think about what we could do for our theaters, our arts and culture industry across the city and the province. Think about how we might be able to bring this to arts, recreation centers and hockey centers, about how we're building special needs hospitals. Think about all of the different ways that nonprofit organizations build and support and have access to infrastructure. Think about all of the churches that need to green their buildings, who have energy efficiency issues and need to and have community bonds as an opportunity to finance the installation of solar panel power on their rooftops. Think about the way that we can engage donors and transform them from being donors to also becoming investors and to be actively engaged in co-creating their communities. So, people put their money where their heart is. As a nonprofit organization, we have an obligation to get back to our roots, which is to relate and reconnect to our real constituency. And we have an incredible opportunity to leverage the power of our community assets. And I think there's a real incredible opportunity to democratize finance, to very, very quietly replace old broken systems with really amazing new systems that give life and energy to our local communities. So, in wrap up to this presentation, because boy, oh boy, I sure can talk, I apologize. It's ultimately, these are all examples of how we can work together to make the world a better place. Concepts like ecosystems, self-organizing, chaos structure, constellations, leadership, connections, decentralization, these are all critically important to how we design our collaborations. But ultimately, we're entering into a new era, the era of the collaborative economy. We're seeing it in example after example where citizens, organizations, and partners are co-creating the world that we want. Ultimately, we do have the tools now. The internet has provided us with incredible powers of aggregation and individual aggregation and disaggregation. So the power to decentralize, to be able to specialize. We've got incredible systems that are finally mapping communities of interest with communities of place with things like Google Maps. The tools are here. It's really our own imaginations that are the limitation to the potential of our collaborations. I believe that this group, private sector, public sector, nonprofit sector, have the potential right here, probably right here today, to come up with some powerful collaborative solutions to guide your work and to enhance and make London an even better city. Ultimately, it's always about working together. And it's not easy work. It's super hard. Collaboration often sucks. The most important thing you can do is see a collaboration that isn't working and call a spade and walk away from the table. Collaboration takes time, partnership takes time, and lots of these collaborations and partnerships will not work and they shouldn't work, and you should have the courage to walk away. But those that do will have the vibrancy and the life energy. And I just have to tell you, it's up to us. Nobody else is going to do this. If we want a better society, it's up to us. That's all I have to say.